This video is brought to you by WaySafe Trailer Hitches.
Many people do this when pulling their trailer with their pickup truck or SUV, and it can be very dangerous, unsafe, and cause many expensive problems. In this video, I want to show you 6 reasons of why it's a bad idea. I'm going to show you what not to do. And then I'm going to also show you a very simple way to fix it. So really the reason for doing this video is that I think most of us already know that too little tongue weight creates trailer sway. And this is what we're mostly worried about when pulling trailers, because trailer sway can happen suddenly. It can happen very quickly after you leave. It just takes a gust of wind or maybe a miscorrection of the steering and a bad thing can happen. But people tend to overcorrect. This happens to me all the time. And when they overcorrect, they do the opposite, which is putting much more weight on the tongue than maybe you should. So, and that's also not good. And this video is about demonstrating this. Here you can already see that this trailer is loaded incorrectly because a heavy vehicle is all the way on the back of the trailer, which means you basically have 0 weight on the tongue. And this is not what I'm talking about. We've been doing videos with every pickup truck and SUV pulling different trailers, and we've been talking about proper 10% tongue load. But the opposite problem of this is having too much weight on your tongue, and this video is really dedicated about this because a lot of people do it accidentally. They push all the weight forward because they're afraid of this situation, but that can also cause problems. This video is brought to you by WaySafe Trailer Hitches. We've been using WaySafe hitches for many years, and this is the primary reason why. It has a built-in scale that tells you pretty much precisely how much weight you have on your hitch, so you can load properly and stay safe. And right now it's showing 0 because that Range Rover is all the way on the back. For this video I'm using this Aluma trailer wide body, which means you could load really wide vehicles, but this trailer is basically made out of aluminum. I really love using it because it has almost 8,000 pounds of payload capacity on the trailer. And this Range Rover, this old P38, weighs about 5,000 pounds. This weighs 2,000, so total trailer weight is 7,000 pounds. Pretty quickly, I wanted to show you the range of hitches that WaySafe offers, and I don't have everything here. I mainly use these aluminum ones. They're super lightweight, very easy to use. They have different shank sizes. This is a 2.5 for heavy-duty pickup trucks with a scale. They also have steel ones with no scale, flip ball, very similar height adjustment, but this is a lot heavier and a little bit more cost effective. You can buy it a little bit cheaper. They also have the True Toe system with weight distribution bars. So this is once again steel, quite heavy, but you can dial in precisely the load that's on the hitch and also distribute it to the front axle of the truck and all the axles of the trailer. This is probably most useful for camping trailers because you don't have an option to move weight around too terribly much. So this is great. They also have gooseneck balls, which we also use for heavy towing, and it's got a scale. When you have 0 load on your hitch when pulling a trailer, it can create very dangerous trailer sway. Once again, this is not the point of this video. Right now we have about 10%, which should be perfect, which is exactly what you want when pulling a trailer. It's safe, stable, and you're using your truck and trailer properly, distributing the weight perfectly. So reason number 6 for not overloading your trailer hitch is stopping distance. Stopping distance can be quite a bit longer if you overload your hitch with your trailer. And I'm going to demonstrate this is I'm going to set a baseline with a properly loaded trailer, 10% tongue weight on the hitch, and then I'm going to overload it not safely, but still put a lot more weight on the hitch and show you stopping distances both times. At 45 miles an hour on this closed road. So I'm gonna get up to about 45. There, 45. And I'm gonna brake. Okay, seems like it was pretty controllable. I have 5 out of 10 trailer brake gain. I'm gonna use the same gain in both cases. Now let's mark it, and then let's change the trailer load and do it again. And actually it's pretty easy because I could see my tire marks. So the hitch says approximately 800 pounds of tongue load for this approximately 7,000 pound trailer. And this is showing trailer axle, rear truck axle, and front truck axle. And if I take 7,000 minus this, that means on the tongue load, according to the truck scale, I have about 900. So the hitch is pretty close. Pretty close. I did not weigh the trailer alone, so I don't have the exact number for the trailer. So, but the hitch and my estimation is quite close. And this is pretty close to 10% that I wanted. So I did another calculation, and my trailer weight with the Range Rover is around 7,040. So my estimations were pretty on the money as far as I knew how much the empty trailer weighed. I Googled how much the Range Rover weighed, then I used my hitch. So I'm within about 50 to 100 pounds of being perfect, which is really what I want to do. Now let's shift the weight forward and see what happens. All right, so I moved the Range Rover forward to simulate more weight and actually have more weight. So I moved the vehicle only about 27 inches. So just 2 feet and 3 inches forward, but it shifted quite a lot of weight. Let me show you. Moving it 27 inches added about 600 pounds to the tongue. We went from 800, according to the hitch, to about 1,400. So, and this is kind of as far as I can make it, as far as safely moving the weight. So now let's retest. Let's see how it slows down and brakes. All right, so we pushed the weight forward. Now the axle weight changed by about 540 pounds, and it was about 600 on the hitch. So those are pretty close. And then my rear axle of the truck gained almost 800 pounds, and about 220 pounds was subtracted from the front axle. So the weight balance of my truck actually changed more dramatically than the trailer axle weight. So that's why I'm doing this. I want to see how the truck behaves in this position. So now there is over 20% of the trailer weight on the hitch, on the tongue of my hitch. So this is really double of what I was supposed to be doing safely. So I want to show you kind of the difference and how the truck stops. So I'm in the same tow haul mode, same gain, 5 out of 10 on the integrated trailer brake controller. So the trailer will be helping the same way, or at least I think it's helping the same way. So if I accelerate, I'm gonna get up to about 44, 45 like I did last time. I'm gonna use my brakes full with ABS basically. There it is. And stop. Ugh. Okay. Let me see if it changed. Once again, 45 miles an hour to 0. This is where the truck ended up last time. You can kind of see some of the tire marks here. And this is where I ended up this time. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7.5 feet longer. So, and this is only 45 miles an hour. Just think about 60 miles an hour on the highway or 75 miles an hour on the highway. It would be exponentially longer. So, you're losing some braking effectiveness because there's less weight here on the front tires. Reason number 5 is when you're putting more weight on the rear axle of the trailer as you would when you overload the hitch, you are wearing out that axle. Now, I want to be a little bit more scientific than I normally am when doing this video. So I want to measure, before I actually go anywhere, the temperature of each hub and also the rear axle on the truck. So I'm kind of going up closer to the hub here, and that one is 105. The rear one is 106. Let me check the rear differential on this truck, 96. So we're gonna remember those numbers and I'll tell you later what they are. So the trailer being properly loaded with 10% on the tongue, I want to measure temperatures after driving about 25 miles to this location. So, and I'm not really looking at ultimate temperatures. I just want to see the balance between them. 119 on the front trailer axle and the same on the rear. So the temperatures are not very hot and they're balanced. So that's what I want to see. Let me check the truck's axle. Truck's axle, 159. All right, after we load poorly, incorrectly, we'll do this check again. So let me measure the temperature after driving the same distance with over 20% on the tongue. Let's see what it is. 169. Front axle 116. Rear axle 112. So there is more temperature in the front axle, and that's partially because the weight is shifted all the way forward when you are unbalanced this way. Let me do one more on the brake caliper. 122 on the front axle. 115 on the rear axle. So as you can see, the temperatures are shifting higher. Just to wrap up point number 5 about wearing out your truck faster. Here on the sticker in the door of this F-150 is the rear Gower gross axle weight rating, which is 3,800 pounds. Now, look at this. I'm at 4,460 according to the truck scale. So I'm 600 pounds over rear axle rating, but I'm still technically within payload because the payload is almost 1,600 pounds and I'm at about 1,400 pounds on the tongue. So even though the tongue rating is okay for payload, the rear axle is overloaded. It will be wearing out faster if I continue to do this, and over some time, the rear differential could have problems. You could see it's a little bit hotter already. And as soon as that fluid gets hot, its life gonna go down. And the bearings will wear out. Lots of bad things could happen. Reason number 4 why overloading a tongue is bad has to do with ride comfort and overall confidence while towing a trailer. So this rear suspension is squished in a much greater way. Here I have almost 4 fingers, maybe 3 fingers of space between the bump stop and the axle. Now with the trailer unbalanced and really heavy on the tongue, there's barely a place for my finger between the bump stop and the axle. And actually, as I just checked, we are technically over gross axle weight rating in the rear. You saw that almost 800 pounds more of weight is now placed on the rear axle of this truck. as such, the bump stop pretty often actually touches the axle, which means I am feeling a lot of the bumps as I'm going over them pretty much most of the time. If we were pulling heavier, close to 10,000 pounds overloaded, it would be very similar and actually getting worse and worse and worse. The other thing that happens when you squish the suspension all the way on most vehicles, you're basically losing a little bit of control. Not with some of the newer trucks, but especially if it's a few years old, you'll be able to, you'll detect a little bit more sway in the rear. So, and it's just because the suspension is fully compressed. So definitely the ride comfort, like right there, I could hear the trailer hitting. And right there. The ride comfort is worse and your overall confidence is worse because there's a little bit of sway, not from the trailer, but from the suspension of the truck. Number 3 reason, steering control. I gotta make a lane change. Okay, it still feels about the same and I'm not going super fast. But here's the idea, right? You're unloading the front axle. And as such, the pressure of those tires hitting the pavement is less. And as such, the steering effectiveness is less. That's also why the braking, it could affect braking, but also it affects steering. And so you may not notice it, in a basic maneuver on dry pavement, but you may notice it while maybe on wet pavement, maybe going a lot faster, or maybe trying to make a very tight turn on loose gravel or dirt. You have a little bit less effectiveness in the steering. Now to wrap up the point number 2, I have a quick story. Mr. Truck, Nathan and I were pulling a trailer. This was years ago. And we had a situation where we had a pickup truck and a trailer, but in reverse. The truck was broken. And the engine of the truck was on the back axle. And we overloaded the rear axle of the trailer. We had some sway, but we also lost the rear tire because the rear tire was supporting a lot more weight. The hub and the tire overheated and the tire exploded after a couple hundred miles. So that type of stuff can happen. So if you're overloading on the tongue like this, the front axle, the bearings, and even the tire can have more wear, and you could have a catastrophic tire failure. And when that tire failed, it wrapped around and broke the fender off the trailer. Now with the tongue overloaded at over 20%, the truck is pointing forward. And the bad thing here, of course you know this, the headlamps are also pointing more upward and you could blind oncoming traffic. You've probably experienced this driving at night and other oncoming vehicles actually flashing you even though you don't have your brights on. So right here I'm at about 44 inches off the ground with the truck pointing in the air. There's almost an inch difference between the center of the headlamp. Now in a more balanced position it's about 43 to the center. It was 44 before, so that's a big difference. And also trucks like my Tundra even have a manual headlamp adjuster. And a lot of newer trucks with fancy headlights have automatic headlight levelers, but some trucks still do not have that. So you kind of have to be mindful. And my verdict is that knowledge is power. And the WaySafe hitch in this case provides additional knowledge, additional information that can help you quickly in a pinch determine your distribution of your weight and stay safe and protect your truck and trailer against wear and tear for the long haul. And what I did learn today is that doing very precise measurements is difficult. I kind of struggled with this today. As you saw, I couldn't have too dramatic of weight shifts or temperature shifts after some of my basic testing today. But I think the point is still clear. If you overload, if you push all of your weight to the front, or if you have a camping trailer and you're not quite certain how the weight is distributed, paying attention to your load on the hitch is very, very important. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and check out oldtfl.com for everything automotive in one place.